views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic. Marge was searching for the purpose of her life and the truth that would tie everything together to make sense of what was taught and what was happening on our planet, the fire that was creating all the smoke. Through many experiences, she was finally led to the knowledge book that provided all the answers. Marge is now talking about this gift to humanity on Knowledge Book Radio, so all can be united in peace, love, and harmony. This live call-in show at 1-800-930-2819 is amazing. So get ready to hear about the Knowledge Book. Here's your host, Marge Potasic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marge Potasic, and you are listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on Transformation Talk Radio. For the next hour, as we have been doing, we will continue our series of Omega Talks, and these are usually given on the fourth Tuesday of every month, and this is part of the unification program of the Call to Friendship Association that is mentioned in the Knowledge Book. In these talks, what is happening is that we are connecting science and spirituality by presenting world knowledge and connecting that world knowledge to the Omega dimension, which is the 19th dimension. And this is a dimension that has been opened to us through the Knowledge Book for the first time. And this week, we are going to talk about Joseph Campbell, Trailblazer. So before we go on, our United States website for the Knowledge Book is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The Turkish World Brotherhood Union website is www.dkb-mevlana.org.tr. That's www.dkb-davidkiteboy-mevlana.org.tr. My own contact information, telephone number, cell number is 973-787-7035. Email address is mmjp99@gmail.com. That's Mary John Peter 99@gmail.com. And since this is the Omega Talk, I will also give the Call to Friendship website, which is www.calltofriendship.org. And of course, right now they're preparing for the Third World Congress to be held in Istanbul, Turkey, and that website is www.worldunification.calltofriendship.org. Okay, again, please do email me or text me with any questions that may come up during this program from today's topics or from previous shows. And of course, I welcome very much any kinds of topics for future shows, so we could prepare talks about the topics you would like to have presented. Okay, so without further ado, we shall start with Joseph Campbell, Trailblazer. Now, Joseph Campbell, as many may know, was actually born in 1904, March 26th, actually, 1904. So in a couple of days, 3 days, it'll be his centennial, actually 115 years since he was born. So March 26, 1904, he was born in New York City, New York. And actually, he died in October of 1987 in Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, during this time span that he spent on this planet, he was a very prolific American author and editor whose works on comparative mythology basically looked at and examined the universal functions of myth in many different world cultures, and he also explored mythic figures in a wide range of literatures. He was born just at the turn of the 20th century. And this was the beginning of the first cosmic age, the first 100 years that had been allocated for the salvation of humanity. And he was one of the critical and very influential thinkers that basically looked at and focused on the similarities between the different religions, cultures, and myths, where others were talking about differences. This is different, this is different, this is different. I believe in this, you believe in that, someone else believes in something else. But he actually saw the truths that were behind these myths, behind these stories, and he saw where things were one and unified as opposed to being disparate and separate. And through his work, and there was much that he produced, but especially with the two books that I'll be discussing, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and then of course The Masks of God, and his famous philosophy To Follow Your Bliss. And he presented a preview, an overture of the knowledge that would be more fully and clearly presented in the knowledge book. So this is the trailblazer. He's the guy that comes in and says, look, we've been looking at things this way, but it's actually the other way. And he was presenting us a different way of looking things, and he was one of the first ones to do this. So we will be delving today into the concepts that Joseph Campbell introduced in two of his themes that strongly influenced and foreshadowed knowledge in the knowledge book. When Campbell was describing the hero's journey, the journey that the hero took, he basically was explaining something that had been used extensively as he presented it by generations of artists and scholars. It showed the similarities among the great stories of world mythology. It is a model of initiatory elements in myth, religion, literature, and ritual. So basically he found the similarities between the stories of mythology, the stories that are given in religion, the stories that are given in literature, and what is going on as far as our formal practices are concerned. So Campbell actually worked from a simpler matrix. He basically broke down the hero's path into three parts: departure, transformation, and return. And he used two theories to explain why these themes were universal. And one theme was the principle of elementary ideas, and the other was the similar concept of archetypes. So he's the one that put this together and crystallized it for everyone. He found the essence of the hero's journey, that it is only one path, however it is followed by many, and each path has its own particular perturbations, its own particular trials and tribulations that the hero would be going through. And actually we see this every day in our movies, we see this in the literature that we read, we see this in situation comedies on TV, we see this in plays, we see this everywhere, this hero's journey. So basically, in Hero with 1,000 Faces, Campbell formulated the dual schemas of the hero's journey, which is a universal motif of adventure and transformation that runs through all humanity's mythic traditions. And combined with this, he also presented the cosmogonic cycle, and this is the stories of how the worlds were created and then either destroyed or dissolved. And these are the two major themes that have marked cultures around the world and across the centuries. Now, this kind of presentation, this kind of idea that Campbell was presenting influenced professors and students in fields that are going from history to religion, or history of religion, through anthropology to literature and film studies. He also influenced creative artists, including authors, filmmakers, game designers, and songwriters. And among all of these, interested in the basic human impulse to tell stories. Now, one interesting fact that I learned is that George Lucas, of course, he's famous for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, actually based his films on the work of Joseph Campbell. And the power of myth, which arose from the interview that Joseph Campbell had on George Lucas's ranch, was based on the interview between Bill Moyers that was done on George Lucas's ranch. So he influenced a lot of people. Now, we'll go break down the hero's journey into the 3 component parts, and the first part is departure. So we first find the hero in the ordinary world that he usually lives in. He's completely oblivious of what's coming. He's having his nice, wonderful, safe home. Everything is wonderful. Everything is fine. However, at this point in time, we find and we begin to learn something about the hero, what his true nature is, what his capabilities are, and how he looks on life and what his philosophy is. Then, of course, comes the call to nature, to adventure. And this is when the actual journey begins, when he receives a call to action. And this could be many different things. In the case of Lucille Ball, it's a scrape she gets into by doing something that, her husband did not allow her to do, or she winds up, so this is a scrape that she gets into, and all of a sudden she has to do something about it. It could be a threat to the city by a bomb being planted somewhere, and the hero has to come in and defuse the bomb in somewhere. There could be some kind of a threat to his family, to his way of life, or to the peace of the community in which that hero lives. Then the third part of the departure is that the hero himself or herself basically says, no can do, I will not do this. They may be wanting to do something about it, but at this stage, that hero will be afraid, and those fears still need to be overcome. He could also, or she could also have second thoughts about whether it's feasible, and they have doubts about whether they are actually up to the challenge and can actually do this task that is presented to them. So at that point, the hero refuses the task given to the hero, and as a consequence, the hero then starts to suffer in some way. And then the fourth part of departure is meeting the mentor. And it is this point that it becomes a crucial turning point where the hero desperately needs guidance, and a mentor comes in, a teacher comes in, a helper comes in that gives him something that he needs. Whether the mentor provides the hero with whatever the mentor gives actually serves to dispel his doubts and fears and gives that hero the strength and the courage to begin his quest. So we go from the ordinary world, something happening that triggers that something needs to be done. The hero says, no way, Jose, I'm not doing any of this. However, when he finds a helper, or a helper comes in, a mentor comes in, he is able to switch things around and is able to then say, okay, I'm doing it. Okay? And then the second part of the hero's journey is transformation. And the first part of transformation is crossing the threshold. And this is now when the hero has overcome his fears, has set his mind that he is going to go on this journey, he is going to accomplish what he's supposed to accomplish, and he's ready to act on his call to adventure and begin the quest, and whether that is physical, spiritual, or emotional. So this could be something that the hero could not face about himself, herself. This is something that they would have to go over, face and overcome a challenge as far as his emotional well-being as well. Then come the tests, the allies, and the enemies. So now the hero is completely out of his comfort zone, and he gets presented with more and more difficult series of challenges that test him in a variety of ways. Also, obstacles are thrown across his path, whether those obstacles are physical hurdles or people that are opposite or want to stop him from progressing. The hero, in this case, at that step, needs to overcome each challenge that he is presented with on the journey towards the ultimate goal. Then comes the approach to the innermost cave. Now, the innermost cave may represent many things in the hero's story, such as an actual location where a danger lies or an inner conflict which he has not been able to face up until that time. And as the hero approaches this cave, he makes the final preparation before taking the final leap into the great unknown. So this is the turning point of going from the known to the completely unknown. Then, of course, then comes the ordeal. The supreme ordeal may be dangerous physical test or a deep inner crisis that the hero must face in order to survive, or for the world in which the hero lives to continue to exist. Only through some form of death can the hero be reborn, can he experience a metaphorical resurrection that somehow grants him greater power or insight necessary in order to fulfill his destiny or reach his journey's end. So through here, the hero needs to basically almost face death, whether it's a real death in physical terms because of the dangerous situation that he goes through or she goes through, or it is a metaphorical death where the old emotional challenge is gone, it is transformed, the hero is transformed, and then a new hero, a new person gets born out of the ashes of what was there before. And then the third part of the hero's journey is the return. And the first part of the return is reward or seizing the sword. And this is where, after having defeated the enemy and having survived death and overcoming his greatest challenge, the hero is ultimately transformed into a new state, emerging from the battle as a stronger person and often with a prize. He comes back with something back to the normal world that he was in. So now he's in the unknown. The road back. Now he must return home with his reward. But this time, where before he was anticipating danger, right now he is looking forward to some kind of an acclaim, some kind of reward, some kind of maybe vindication of what his philosophy was, and sometimes also absolution or even exoneration. But his journey's not over yet, because the moment before the hero finally commits to the last stage of his journey, there may be a moment where he must choose between his own personal objective and that of a higher cause. Then comes resurrection. This is the climax, and in this climax, that's where the hero must have his final and most dangerous encounter with death. The final battle also represents something far greater than the hero's own existence, with its outcome having far-reaching consequences to the ordinary world and the lives of those that he left behind. Then, of course, the last part of the return is return with the elixir. This is the final stage of the hero's journey. Now he's come back to his ordinary world, to his regular environment. However, the environment may be the same, but the hero itself has changed. He was transformed. He has grown, or she has grown as a person. They have learned many things, faced many terrible dangers, and even death, but now looks forward to the start of a new life. The final reward that he obtains may be literal or metaphoric. Whatever it is, it represents three things: change, success, and proof of the journey. Now, who is the hero? Well, the hero's story is also Mevlana's story, as he, as Jalaluddin-e Rumi, and currently as she, Vedya Buland Ansu Chirag, has followed all the hero's steps as described by Joseph Campbell. The hero's story is also the story of Odysseus, of Hercules, of Lucille Ball, of Luke Skywalker, of any hero in a sitcom story, and it is also our story. It also describes humanity's journey from dimension to dimension during our 19 times 26,000 year cycle through this space and time dimension. But how is this journey fueled? What drives us? What happens to us that we are able to accomplish this evolution? But I just want to go back a little bit. Now, Mevlana's story, if anyone has read the Knowledge Book, basically, she was presented with a situation. The situation was, Mevlana, you are responsible for presenting the Knowledge Book and unifying humanity. That was her challenge. And just as described in the journey, by Joseph Campbell, she refused. Says, no, I can't do this. I cannot do this. This is too much for me. I know other people who are much more qualified, more than I am. Go talk to them. I'm sure they'll do a much better job than I actually can. And it took a while before she actually was able to understand and accept. And again, here where the mentors came in. She was taught, she was shown things, things were revealed to her, she was taken on journeys, she was able to, and throughout 10 years, she was given information that helped her to finally accomplish the tasks that she has been accomplishing. So she finally accepted the challenge and has been working to give the knowledge book to the planet and other covenants that she had with the system. So this is her journey as well. And of course, she is transformed. The person that she was before she took up the mission at 45 is not the person she is now. She has grown humongously. And just like everyone, she started with third dimension world frequency and is now at the dimension of the all truthful. So this is, at least I wanted to expand a little bit more on Mevlana's story in comparison to the journey that Joseph Campbell has presented for the hero. Now let's go back to how is this journey fueled? So what drives us? What happens to us that we are able to accomplish this evolution? I don't know about anybody else, but going through karma is not easy. Going through karma is painful. These are all lessons that need to be learned, and the old us has to die before the new us can be created, can be formed, and can exist. So what pushes us? We don't like it. However, we find ourselves in it. So what propels us forward to be able to accomplish this? Well, first of all, as the knowledge book informs us, we come perfectly ready at each incarnation. We come ready with our essence that is connected to and wants to return to its source. We come completely ready with our brain hardwired for success. We come in with a partial will that drives us forward, and we also come in with our plan of destiny that leads us to our goal of reunion as long as we live our life program. So, now we're going to go a little bit more detail as to how we are propelled. And this becomes our subconscious driving force, and that's explained in Fascicle 30. The will of total is a mirror that reflects on time through a time beyond space. In essence, the will of total is a one-way mirror where the celestial authorities can see us and guide us, but we can't see them. But when our individual awareness and will unifies with the genuine consciousness, then it becomes the will of total and we integrate with the whole. And how do we accomplish this feat? Well, we were given a minute part of this total will as partial will. And this partial will is our subconscious jet propulsion mechanism, the drive that propels us forward to purify our karma, to jump over the thresholds of dimensions, and to return to our source and to unify with it. So we become like salmon swimming upstream to their birthplace, braving bears and other predators, jumping hundreds of feet up waterfalls, and we go forward towards the source no matter the cost and no matter how that is going to turn out. To continue, total will, or when our own consciousness code, our own consciousness altitude or height, unifies with our universal code or universal altitude or height, is something that Allah has granted to the entire universe. We each have a minute part of this total will that makes us a possession of it, and this is what the partial will or jet propulsion mechanism actually is. Individual will is what humans have given to ourselves. When we are no longer in the fear code, when we are no longer having fears and possessions, when we no longer have passions or obsessions, we go from partial will to individual will. So let's put it another way. When partial will unifies with individual will, one automatically reaches the total will. So this no longer becomes a subconscious force propelling us, but our own will that consciously drives us forward. It is at this point that we have succeeded in reaching the all-merciful that represents the total will. In other words, the power of our universal consciousness makes us attain the power of the all-merciful. Or when the essence energy of the partial will unifies with the essence self of the individual will, the universal total comes to be, and this is when we come to know ourselves, to find ourselves, and we have a grasp of everything. So we've covered the hero's journey. Now we're going to switch tracks a little bit, and talk about the other book that Joseph Campbell produced, or books that Joseph Campbell produced, which are the Masks of God. Now this was the Oriental mythology, this was Masks of God, primitive mythology, Masks of God, creative mythology, and Occidental mythology. So these are the 4 books that he presented about the Masks of God. Now, the second concept introduced by Joseph Campbell was presented in The Masks of God, written between 1959 and 1968. So it took him 9 years to put this together. And just like he had done with finding the common denominator, the unity of thought, the single path in the world's hero stories, Joseph Campbell found that all the depictions of God had a common theme, that we were seeing a single entity that showed a face, a mask, a facet, that emphasized certain features and characteristics necessary for the growth of that culture. So every culture had its own idea of what God is and what God did, and every religion had its own particular idea of what God is at that particular stage, and a different face of God was shown at that particular time, and it usually correlated with what that society needed at that time to be able to progress. Now, Joseph Campbell encapsulated what the divine authorities have tried to inculcate, to instill, to persistently teach us over thousands of years of evolution, that there is a single God and that we achieve God consciousness when we no longer have any negativity within us. According to the Knowledge Book, every dimension has a Lord mechanism, or a God, responsible for supervising, orienting, and guiding those in that dimension. The Knowledge Book in Fascicule 2 tells us that there are 99 names of God in the Quran, 300 names in the Old Testament, 300 names in the New Testament, and 300 names in the Psalms of David. The Far East sacred texts were not described any number of names. The total of all these names that found in the 4 sacred texts are 999. However, the Knowledge Book states that the total number of names that exist is 6,666. So that if you do your math, that means that there are 5,667 names that we don't know or have. And I'm thinking, my question is, so does that mean that all these myths and all these stories about God and creation that are found in various parts of the world, maybe they contain some of those missing names of God that we don't know yet? Now, Joseph Campbell, although he ascribed a count of 1,000 for the number of heroes, he did not give a number for the number of masks that God wears. Maybe he had this inkling, this idea of what the Knowledge Book tells us, that Allah is single, but we render him many in our thoughts. Depending on the dimension we are in, we will have a particular set of characteristics for our God of that dimension, because that is the God of our dimension. And as we go from dimension to dimension, from the meditation to the Kabbalah, to the New Testament, to the Quran, to our view and the character of God changes. So our view of the Buddha is different than our view of the Father of God, a Father of Jesus Christ, and this will be different than Yahweh. It'll be different than whatever God the religions had in Egypt or whatever, or Sumer or any place else. However, that God will be perfectly suited at that point to teach, to guide, to supervise those beings who are in that dimension, who are basically at that level, to be able to guide them, to teach them, for those to be able to evolve. Now, the knowledge book also gives us the clearest idea of what God is and what Allah is. However, it still states that we are not at the level to be able to fully understand it. So my question is, and I paraphrase the knowledge book, how do you define something that is undefinable? How can you describe something that is indescribable? Something that grows ever bigger the closer you get to it. And as we grow, it seems to grow in geometric progression, ever expanding and ever unreachable. So this is something that's beyond our comprehension, beyond any words that we could use, beyond anything that we could ascribe to it. I'd like to think of it as this. How do you explain snow to a Sahara nomad? And how do you explain the Sahara to an Eskimo? Neither one has a concept of what the other is. The Eskimo knows only cold and snow. Sahara only knows sun and sand. The two don't mix. The two will not be able to comprehend what the other environment is. However, the Eskimo has its own particular set of guidelines that he follows. The Saharan nomad also has a particular set of guidelines that he follows or she follows. And each one of that environment, each one of those mediums are exactly what both the Eskimo and the Saharan nomad need at that particular point in time to progress in their life. So, Knowledge Book gives us the concept of Allah as a symbol and as a system and as an ever-changing, ever-growing power that is none of any of the words that are used to approximate that power. For me, the closest thing I could get to it, and this is, the hint is given in the Knowledge Book of computur, meaning the pi like 3.14, and it's a ever-growing, non-repeating decimal number. So for me, God is like pi. It grows without repeating itself, something that is bigger than it was before, something that is not what it is a minute before, and something my mind completely cannot grasp and understand. In terms of being able to understand and see God and our description of God, and although Campbell did not specify the number of masks that God wore, since there are approximately 7 billion people on this planet, each in their own dimension, each coming from their own dimension, and each connected to their own dimension, there are potentially 7 billion masks of God wears, as each one of us sees him, her differently. And this becomes like the story of a blindfolded person trying to describe an elephant. The description changes depending on which part of an elephant the blindfolded person is holding. However, there is only one elephant, just as there is only one single Allah and a single God. So if the person or the blindfolded person is holding the side of an elephant, it feels that is a wall. If they're holding onto the tail, it feels as it's a rope. If they're holding on to or at the position of the legs, then they would maybe think that it's a tree. If they're holding on to the snake, trunk, then they think it's a snake. And if they happen to be right by the tusks, then they may think that it's a spear because it's sharp and pointy. And if they're by the wings that are flapping, then they may think that this is a wind. So depending on where you are in position around the elephant, you will see different things. Just like depending on where we are in our evolution and our consciousness, we will have a different aspect of Allah, different aspect of God, because that is the God of that dimension that we're in, and that is the God that we need at that particular dimension. Okay? Now the next that we're going to cover is Follow Your Bliss. This was actually taken up by people everywhere, and people have followed this Follow Your Bliss. And this is one of the most widely known quotes from Joseph Campbell. He firmly believed in following where your heart and your interests led you, not what society dictates or where money is to be made. Now, as a point of an example, he was studying at Columbia, and he was going for his doctorate, and he wanted to do a particular study, comparative study of a particular religion. I don't know which one it is or which story it was. However, his advisor refused to approve his topic. So instead of following the advisor, he basically said, okay, fine, I'm not going to get a doctorate. I'm going to go on my own path, my own study, and continue and do whatever it's supposed to be. Okay? So he followed his own interest, and he followed his own path to success. And because he followed his essence and where the lessons led him, he was able to give us everything that he gave us and all this work that he gave us in terms of literature, in terms of philosophy, concepts, and unification theories. Now, many people followed his philosophy, and they basically went off the beaten track, went off and forgot about convention, forgot about conservatism, and blazed their own trail, whether that was developing a new product, producing new machinery, or computing concepts, or new fashion designs, or going to the moon or into space. Or let's say with Michael Jackson creating the moonwalk. That hasn't been seen before, so he created a new form of dance. Or people that created hip-hop with a new style of music. People that went into space created new ways of traversing through space, different kinds of fashion, different kind of anything. So you see this in all kinds of walks of life where people are following their own path, their own interest, and succeeding. And here I'm going to quote as Joseph Campbell as to what his philosophy is, follow your bliss. So in his own words, quote, I have a firm belief in this now, not only in terms of my own experience, but in knowing the experiences of other people. When you follow your bliss, and by bliss I mean a deep sense of being in it and doing what the push is out of your own existence. It may not be fun, but it's your bliss, and there's bliss behind pain too. You follow that, and doors will open where there were no doors before, where you would not have thought there'd be doors, and where there wouldn't be a door for anybody else. If you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. And the life that you thought and the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. Wherever you are, if you are following your bliss, you are enjoying that refreshment, that life within you all the time, end quote. So, what Joseph Campbell calls follow your bliss is explained in Fascicle 29 when it describes in Fascicle 29 the various stages of awareness, intellect, and consciousness. When we are born, we have our own life plan, a plan of destiny or fate that custom tailors the hero's journey for our own particular evolutionary needs for that lifetime. Following your bliss means that you are following your life plan. You are on the hero's path, traversing the dimension on the way to transcending it and going on to the next dimension. By following our path, we gradually succeed in undergoing training at each stage and going on to the next stage, eventually succeeding in arriving at the state of the genuine human, thereby gaining entrance to the advanced dimensions. So Fascicle 29 explicitly gives various stages of progression. I would ask you to look at that. And to somewhat summarize, Joseph Campbell gave us a preview of what was to be clearly presented in the latter part of the 20th century. He basically showed that although there are many variations, the hero is actually going through the same process. What appears to be a multiple path is actually a single path. He also pointed out that despite the many faces of God shown, it is actually a single God, a single Allah. And in his philosophy of follow your bliss, he gave us the essence of the life program, the plan of destiny we follow. As the Knowledge Book states, single path, single book, single Allah. And now maybe it's a good time for take a short break. You have been listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek, and to remind everyone that the U.S. Knowledge Book website is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The telephone number, cell phone for questions and topics is 973-787-7035, and email address is mmjp99@gmail.com. marymaryjohnpeter99@gmail.com. When we come back, we will continue with Joseph Campbell's Trailblazer. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Our angels and animals are always working for and around us. Darcy Pariso knew from an early age she felt this incredible presence that was confirmed for her in a Reiki Level 1 course. From then on, she has honed her skills and dedicated her talents to providing answers, inspiration, and tools for people to move past limiting blocks and past traumas to truly live a life of happiness. For more information about working with Darcy, visit darcypariso.com.
People often ask, what does it mean to thrive? On Thrive by Jen Radio, it means body confidence, mind fulfillment, and soul synchronicity. Create synchronicity with God and learn as Jen shares action steps and real stories that will inspire you to be unstoppable in fulfilling your purpose. Tune in live each Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com and visit JenniferZellup.com to thrive with Jen.
Are you ready to consistently tap into the transcendent place where your whole being is available to you and access a higher level of ability and performance physically, cognitively, emotionally, and effectively? Then join us on ClearSpeak Talk Radio with Dr. Jeanette Wolf on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in every fourth Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. Go to JeanetteWolf.com, Quantum Body, to sign up for your whole health mentoring.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Tune in to Knowledge Book Radio with host Marge Potasic each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Through many experiences, Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity in its transition to the Golden Age, and it provided the truth and the answers. She now shares information from the Knowledge Book with you each week on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net.
High-frequency healing for an amazing life with Source Light Radio. Join host Laura Barton each month on Transformation Talk Radio as she explores Source Light integration, a unique spectrum of energy, light, and frequency. Experience instantaneous healing and amazing shifts in consciousness with Source Light Integrations Radio. For more information on Laura and her work, visit sourcelightintegrations.com.
And we're back on Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on Transformation Talk Radio. Again, reminder, U.S. Knowledge Book website, www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. Telephone number for questions, topics, issues, 973-787-7035. Email address mmjp99@gmail.com, marymaryjohnpeter99@gmail.com. So, okay, let's summarize what we've covered today about Joseph Campbell, Trailblazer. Basically, he came in at the beginning of the first cosmic century. This is one of the 3 centuries allocated to humanity's salvation. We have been reincarnating over and over for a long time, at least 19 times 26,000 years. We've been coming back and slowly progressing from our evolution path, starting out as a single point of energy, and the energy form changing over time, and we have become human eventually, and we have each an essence and the spark of God that is contained in each one of us. Now, throughout this time, we have been given knowledge, we have been given information, we have been given supervision that allows us to progress whatever and know whatever it is that we need to know. We have progressed to the state where we are in right now, where the body that we have is not the body that we used to have even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, because now we have bodies that can withstand these very strong energies that are coming in. And we are, most of us now who are involved with the Knowledge Book, at least at the 72nd energy dimension, 18th evolution dimension, on our way to Omega, which is the 19th dimension, evolutionary dimension, 76th energy dimension. Now, as far as personally, for me, the big thing that Joseph Campbell presented to me was the idea that there is a unification, that there is something that connects everything on this planet. Before that, prior to the Powers of Myth that was presented on PBS starting in 1988, and this was presented, after Joseph Campbell died, because he died in 1987. So this was presented posthumously, after his death. For me, this was the first inkling that there is something beyond the disparity that I see, behind all the different religions that are saying religion is better than the other, this one is better than the other, my God is more powerful than your God, my religion is better than your religion, I have a better view of what the world is and what cosmology is. So there was all kinds of differences that I was seeing, but I didn't see anything beyond that. So Joseph Campbell, during that Power of Myth interview with Bill Moyers, this was the first inkling I had that there may be a unity behind all this, that there is something that unifies it all. And I had been looking for the truth behind everything as to what starts it and what produced the smoke, what the fire was that produced the smoke. So this was my first inkling of arrival at the truth, and that led me on my own particular quest of more knowledge, more search, and which eventually led me to the Knowledge Book. The other point is this hero's journey, that the path of the hero is the path of humanity, it is our own individual path. As we go, and this is my own understanding, as we go we wake up in the morning, and we meet whatever we meet during that day. It could be a huge challenge, it could be a little challenge, but when we start the day, we're not the person that we were at the end of the day, both physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Because during that day, we are presented with all kinds of challenges. We are presented with all kinds of tests and trials to see, number one, where we are and what we still need to learn. So, in terms of the hero's journey, it is our journey through our everyday living. It is our journey through the years that we're here on this planet. And every day and every challenge we go through, it may be short-lived. It could be within one day that you're doing this, or it could take, maybe years to accomplish something. So no matter what, we all basically start out with the known. This is the world that we know. This is the environment that we know. These are the people that we know. And then somehow something happens to us where we jump into the unknown, that there's some kind of a knock on our door, some kind of a challenge that is presented to us, whether it's someone yelling at us on the other side of the phone, or this is something that somebody tells you, hey, do this. I mean, my own particular journey, once I found out about the Knowledge Book, I found myself in Istanbul, Turkey in 2008, and Mr. Chanak asked me to form a council in New York City. So I said, okay, well, what's a council? And I don't really know people. How am I going to do this? So this was my own particular knock on the door as far as the Knowledge Book was concerned, and that challenge was given to me. So throughout that time that I was there in Istanbul for those 5 days, I asked a lot of questions. I got a lot of answers. I got very, very confused. So this is why I was going from the known, my own regular world that I was in, to the unknown, something that I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about the Knowledge Book. I didn't know anything about the programs that are associated with the Knowledge Book. But I was given a challenge and something to do. And each step of the way, I was provided with helpers. I was somehow provided with challenges. And of course, do I do this? Do I do something else? And every day was some kind of a decision, something to do. And by the end of the whole thing, this is where I went from the known to the unknown in the hero's journey. And there were situations where the me that I knew disappeared. So I became a new Marge. I became someone that was different than she was before. So the old me died, and a new me came to be. So I was transformed to something different. And the people that I was usually associated with in my own world were not very kind to me, let's put it this way. And right at the time that I was going into the threshold of the knowledge book and actually knowing about the knowledge book, I went through a terrific, horrific time where everything that I believed in, everything that I knew, and that was the foundation of my world, completely disappeared. And I was left in a black pit with no way out. However, at that point, the idea came to me that, well, the only way out, the only thing that's left for me to do if I'm so low, the only way is up. So if one door closes, another one needs to open. So I just saw and tried to find what it was that was opening to me. And I came back, and that's how I wound up in Istanbul in the first place, because I saw that there was another door opening. I went through that opening and came to Istanbul, Turkey, was able to discover what my next challenge is and what my path is. I've been there ever since. So you go from the unknown from the known to the unknown and back to the known, but the known now is a little bit different. And the known now is the person is transformed. So little by little, step by step, we go through and finish things up, and we go through and are able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So this is a big deal. If we pay attention to what's going on in our life, then you could see this cycle. In terms of challenges, of course there are challenges. There's family that tells you there's no way that you're going to be doing this. What are you doing? You're crazy. So there's always blocks. However, at the same time, there are mentors, there are helpers, and there's always something out there that helps you on your journey. There is a guidance. And when I look back at my own particular life, it's as if there is someone out there kind of guiding, directing, and pointing you in the direction that you need to be going in. So this is the hero's journey that we're all on. And instead of having maybe, 1,000 heroes, we actually have 7 billion heroes, just like we have 7 billion faces of God, because each one of us has our own particular idea of what God is. And part of what this Call to Friendship program is to basically unify all those dimensions. Each one of us on this planet are connected to our own dimension and are coming from our own dimension. And our job is to actually unify that dimension that we're coming from to the dimension of the All-Merciful, to the union of central suns. And in this way, by actually combining the knowledge from our own dimension and the world dimension to the knowledge book, we are combining and unifying all the knowledge, so all the knowledge will be in one place. We won't have just disparate ideas. Everything will be unified in one place as a one cohesive whole. So step by step, little by little, we're getting there. So again, hero's journey, many faces of God. God is something, this is a concept, it's energy, it's described as energy, but it's not energy, it's a power, but it's not a power. We do not have words to describe something that we cannot understand. So that is that. And of course, follow your bliss. This is our own interest. This is our own path that we go through. This is our life plan that we go through. As long as we are following our life program, we will be able to succeed. We will be able to get to the 19th dimension. We will be able to get to Omega, because we come in predisposed. We come in ready. We are hardwired for success. As long as we are following the guidelines, as long as we are following our life path, as long as we are following our program, and as long as we are following our essence and not our ego. And our entire objective at this point is to basically get away from ego and get towards our essence. So eventually, by going through the programs with the knowledge book, by unifying with the knowledge and the energies and frequencies of the knowledge book, we are able to fully absorb the energies and frequencies that the knowledge book is giving us, and we are able to then be a completely different person, a transformed person. We'll go from a human to a genuine human. And a genuine human is one that has infinite patience, infinite tolerance, and infinite humility. So, and of course, infinite love. So this is something that we are going towards, and as long as we are following whatever guidelines are being given, as long as we are absorbing the knowledge that is being given so that we have the knowledge that is necessary for our own particular dimension, for us to be able to go through that dimension, overcome the challenges and tests of that dimension, absorb all the energies of that dimension, and are able to then come out of it as a genuine human, one that'll give you the shirt off his back even though, it's freezing cold, that is able to give you a piece of bread when they themselves are starving. So, this is basically what we have covered for today. We went through Joseph Campbell, the trailblazer, who came in at the beginning to give us a concept, to give us an idea, because we need knowledge. We need to be able to have knowledge that we didn't have before in order to know what there is out there so we can deal with it, work with it, become conscious with it. Okay, so this is it for today. This is all that we have time for. Again, questions, suggestions for topics to 973-787-7035, mmjp99@gmail.com, Mary John Peter 99@gmail.com. Please remember to look on the website for the location of the focal points in the United States. And of course, we're still offering the 3 introductory chapters from the Knowledge Book. Just send us your email, not your email. So send us an email with your postal mailing address. We'll be very happy to give you the 3 chapters from the Knowledge Book. This is the first, the 20th, and 25th chapter of the Knowledge Book. And that gives you kind of a cross-section of what the Knowledge Book contains and how it works. And you'll be able to test it out, test run, to see if this is something for you at this particular point in time. Okay, so please join me every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Patazik. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Patazik. Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity, and its time of transition to the Golden Age that provided the truth and energies and frequencies. Now, she shares information from and answers questions about the Knowledge Book with you each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit Marge at usa.theknowledgebook.net.